Thomas and friends, making tracks to great destinations.
Dear Christopher, here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted to come out of his station yard and see the world. These stories tell you how he did it. I hope you will like them, because you helped me to make them. Your loving Daddy.
The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue seas. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams, and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills, and a coal mine, and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the tracks? It's Thomas! Hello, Thomas! Hello, everybody! Welcome to the island of Sodor! Today is a very special day on the island of Sodor. It's a day all about James, the really splendid engine. We'll see James play a joke. Next, James worries about a red balloon. And next, James collects the Queen of Sodor. But first, James boasts to Toby about his shiny new red paint. Toby and Henrietta are enjoying their new job on the island of Sodor, but they do look old-fashioned and need new paint. James was very rude whenever he saw them. Yuck! What dirty objects, he would say. At last, Toby lost patience. James, he asked, why are you red? I'm a splendid engine, answered James. Ready for anything? You never see my paint dirty. Oh, said Toby innocently. That's why you once needed bootlaces to be ready, I suppose. James went redder than ever and snorted off. It was such an insult to be reminded of the time a bootlace had been used to mend a hole in his coaches. At the big station, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow goods, stopping at every station to pick up and set down trucks. James hated slow goods trains. Dirty trucks from dirty sidings! Blech! Starting with only a few, he picked up more and more trucks at each station, until he had a long train. At first, the trucks behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they were determined to pay him back. Presently, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy goods trains halt here to pin down their brakes. James had an accident with trucks before and should have remembered this. "Wait, James, wait," said the driver. But James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking what he would say to Toby when they next met. The truck's chance had come. "Hurrah, hurrah," they laughed, and banging their buffers they pushed him down the hill. On, yelled the trucks. "I've got to stop! I've got to stop!" groaned James. Through the station they thundered. Disaster lay ahead. Something sticky splashed all over James. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smokebox to cab. He was more dirty than hurt, but the tar wagons and some trucks were all to pieces. Toby and Percy were sent to help, and came as quickly as they could. "Look here, Percy," exclaimed Toby. "Whatever is that dirty object?" "That's James, didn't you know?" "It's James's shape," said Toby, "but James is a splendid red engine, and you never see his paint dirty." James pretended he hadn't heard. Toby and Percy cleared away the unhurt trucks and helped James home. The Fat Controller met them. "Well done, Percy and Toby." He turned to James. "Fancy letting your trucks run away. I am surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. Toby shall have a new coat of paint." "Please, sir, can Henrietta have one too?" said Toby. "Certainly, Toby." "Oh, thank you, sir. She will be pleased." All James could do was watch Toby as he ran off happily with the news. Every engine on the island of Sodor looks different. Can you tell who this is? This engine has a tall funnel and a sparkly, shiny dome. What else can we see on this engine? It's the number 5. Do you know which engine on Sodor is number 5? Here's another clue. This engine is bright and shiny and red. There's only one engine who is red. Do you know who it is? That's right! It's James! Hello, James! James is a mixed traffic engine. He can pull both trucks and coaches. He's proud of his smart red paint, and so is his driver. Everyone says you brighten up their day, James. One morning, James whistled loudly to the other engines. "Look at me, I'm the smartest, most useful on the line." "Rubbish," replied Thomas, "we're all useful. The Fat Controller says so, and he's the top hat, head of the whole railway." "You know what, James?" added Percy. "What?" "You're getting all puffed up." James huffed away. Later he was still boasting. "I'm the pride of the line." "I saw you pulling trucks today. You're only a goods engine," snorted Gordon. James was furious. "I pull coaches too." "Not as much as I do," grunted Gordon. "The Fat Controller has plans for me." James was only making this up, but Gordon believed him. "What plans?" Wait and see." "Oh dear," thought James. "Now what'll I do?" Thomas was shunting shining new coaches. "Good morning, James." "Are those coaches for me?" asked James hopefully. "No, These are for Gordon's Express. I'll fetch your trucks next. But James was going to play a trick on the other engines. Actually, Thomas, I'm taking the coaches. The Fat Controller asked me to tell you. What about the trucks? Give them to Gordon. Come on, Thomas, said his driver. Orders are orders. So when James's driver returned, James was coupled up to the coaches and he puffed away. Thomas returned with the trucks. A few minutes later, Gordon arrived. Where's the express? Thomas told him about James. And so, here are your trucks. Gordon was very cross, and so was his driver. Wait until the Fat Controller hears about this. Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself enormously. What a clever plan! What a clever plan, he chuffed. Then he saw the Fat Controller. Some jokes are funny, but not this one, James. You have caused confusion. Yes, sir, said James. You will stay in your shed until you are wanted. The other engines teased James. I wonder who'll be pulling the express today, said Gordon. I expect it'll be you, replied Henry. James is stuck in the shed for being silly. James felt sad. Next morning, he went back to work. Hello, whistled Thomas. Good to see you out and about. I'm sorry I tricked you, said James. Are these my trucks? Yes, replied Thomas kindly. They are pleased to have you back. James set off to the docks with his goods trains of trucks. He bustled about all day, pushing and pulling them into place. Time to go home now, James, said his driver at last. No trucks or passengers, just we two. But his driver was wrong. Excuse me, called a man. I have a meeting with Sir Topham Hatt, and I mustn't be late. May I ride back with you? Of course, replied James's driver. Then he whispered to James, This gentleman is a railway inspector. James was most impressed. He steamed along the line as smoothly and quickly as he could. The Fat Controller was waiting on the platform, and the railway inspector greeted him warmly. This clever engine gave me a splendid ride. You must be proud of him. Yes, indeed, James. Once again, you are a really useful engine. Take a look who's coming, down the track, make way for James, hooray for James. Shiny, shiny paint with a jet black stack, make way for James, hooray for James. What is for certain and we really should note, it's indisputable, but let's take a vote. He's the really splendid engine with the bright red coat. James-o. He can brag all day, how fast he goes, how good he looks, he's such a pose. But what about the time he got covered in mud? Oh, what a dope, what a dud. But up and down the line, you'll hear the others say, despite his vanity, he really is okay. Dependable, reliable, and seldom late. We all think James is great. Speeding down the line like a lightning flash, make way for James, hooray for James. Hang on to your hat as he whooshes past, make way for James, hooray for James. He really knows how to stage a show. You gotta stand back and watch him go, he's a really splendid engine with the bright red coat. Woo! Look who's swanning it down the track. Make way for James. Hooray for James. He never looks up. He never looks back. Make way for James. Hooray for James. Attack conceited and really quite vain. He knows we love him just the same. Take a look who's coming down the track. Make way for James. Hooray for James. Shiny, shiny paint with the jet black stack. Make way for James. Hooray for James. He's a really splendid engine. Shiny, shiny engine. He's a really splendid engine. Yep, that's our James. That's James. It's summer holiday time on the island of Sodor. Holidaymakers come from far and wide to enjoy the beauty of the island. It's the busiest time of the year for the Fat Controller's engines. And Thomas was excited. The Fat Controller had sent him to pick up a special to deliver to Dryhaw Airfield. "Oh, what have you got there?" tooted Percy. "A balloon," replied Thomas. "A party balloon?" asked Percy excitedly. "No," said Thomas. "This is a very special balloon." And he chuffed away. Soon, Thomas arrived at the airfield. And hot air was puffed into the balloon. "What is that?" huffed James. "A hot air balloon," said Thomas. "It will take holidaymakers and ride around the island." "Taking holidaymakers and ride around the island is our job," wheezed James jealously. Then, as if by magic, the hot air balloon rose silently up into the sky. "What if the hot air balloon takes our passengers away?" huffed James. "What will happen to us then?" This made Thomas worry. Suddenly, he wasn't so excited about the balloon anymore. The balloon could be seen by everyone on the island of Sodor. Duck gazed at it for so long, he ran to the back of Stepney. "Why, it is a floating basket with a fork in it," said Donald. Whatever they'll dream up next," said Douglas. James and Thomas were waiting at the level crossing. They were still worried about the hot air balloon. "If it takes our passengers away," chuffed Thomas, "there'll be no use for us engines." "Passengers should travel on trains," huffed James, "not in silly balloons." Then something big, round and red drifted straight towards them. "We're out of hot air!" shouted a voice. "Ah!" cried James. "What's happening?" Crash! Bang! Wallop went the balloon and landed right on top of James. He was so scared he let out a huge burst of steam, which blew the balloon up again. The balloon rose into the air once more. "Well done," James called his driver. "Your hot air did the trick." "Oh no, James," cried Thomas. "You've saved the hot air balloon." "I didn't mean to," groaned James. "Now it's sure to take our passengers." Wherever James went, he could see the balloon carrying holidaymakers across the island. He felt he should be taking those passengers. Rails are better than hot air any day. James arrived back at Dryhaw Station. There were lots of people on the platform. The Fat Controller was waiting too. "Well done, James," he said. "But now the passengers will ride in the hot air balloon." The Fat Controller laughed. "You're right, James," he said, "but they will need a ride home in a train." James was delighted. The Fat Controller was right. The engines were busier than ever, taking holidaymakers to and from the airfield. Whenever James sees the red balloon, he whistles and toots. And sometimes, when he's asleep at night, James dreams he could fly too. Just like the red balloon. Here is a picture of James, puffing through the countryside. Let's colour in the picture. Green first. What's green? James? No, James isn't green. What about the grass and leaves on the trees? Yes, they're green. Blue next. What could we colour in blue? James? No, James isn't blue. What about the sky? Yes, the sky is blue. What colour shall we paint James? Red? That's right. James is a beautiful bright red. What a lovely picture. The engines on the island of Sodor want to be responsible, reliable, and really useful. They are happiest when the Fat Controller gives them important work to do. James thinks his work is very important indeed. He is proud of his red paint and likes to look clean and smart. One day, Percy puffed to the washdown. My whistle's clogged. He tried to blow hard to clean it out, but instead blew mud all over Gordon. Silly! Huffed Gordon. Percy was trying not to laugh. Keep your dirt away from me, huffed James. I'm collecting the mayor today. I should do that. Really? Chuckled James. You need a wash down first, Gordon. Pah! Snorted Gordon. James just laughed. Soon, James had collected the mayor and puffed proudly away to the mainland. Just look at me, Gordon! Show off, grunted Gordon. The next day, the Fat Controller came to the sheds. I need an engine to collect the Queen of Sodor. Who's the Queen of Sodor? Asked Thomas. A leaky old bard, replied the Fat Controller. She needs to go to the ironworks. It's dirty work, I'm afraid. Just then, James shunted into the sheds. This gave Gordon an idea. Is collecting the Queen of Sodor important work too? Very important work. Do I have a volunteer? Very important work, exclaimed James. I'll do it. Then it's settled. She's waiting at the harbour. Thank you, sir, said James. Gordon was delighted. His plan was working. I'm here to collect the Queen of Sodor, announced James. There she is, said the harbour manager. James was furious. That's all talk. Gordon tricked me. He just wants me to get dirty. I'll show him. A shiny engine like me never gets dirty. Soon, James set off with the Queen of Sodor. It was a long journey to the ironworks. Shiny and clean, puffed James. Then there was trouble. The tall funnel of the old barge crashed through a pipe. James was sure he'd get covered in sludge, but he didn't. Shiny and clean, he declared again. The workmen soon cleared the mess, and then James was on his way again. He arrived safe and sound, pleased that the dirty work was done. When James returned to the shed, he was very proud of himself. How did you manage to stay so clean? I have to stay clean, boasted James, in case there's important work to do. Just then, Percy returned from the quarry. My whistle is clogged again. Watch out, James. Just flew everywhere. I did warn you. You'll need a wash down now, teased Thomas. Good, snorted James. It will make me readier than ever. I'm such a splendid engine. Oh, yuck. Oh dear. Ah. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight, red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew, all with different roles to play around Titmuth sheds or far away, down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends. James is vain but never bad, Thomas, he's the cheeky lad, Percy pulls the mail on time, Gordon thunders down the line, Emily really knows her stuff, Henry toots and huffs and puffs, Edward wants to help and share, Toby, well let's say he's square. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight, red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew, all with different roles to play around Titmuth sheds or far away, down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight, red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew, all with different roles to play around Titmuth sheds or far away, down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends.